the deadliest secret, the horror behind a locked door. Welcome back. Today's story will haunt you long after it ends. It's about a father who thought he was watching his son heal, and a project that consumed months of careful work in a locked bedroom. This isn't your typical case. There's no mystery to solve, no villain to unmask. Instead, it's something far more unsettling, a story about how the sounds of construction can mask the sounds of something much darker. As usual, I have to warn you, this case will make you think differently about supporting someone's personal projects, and it will make you question what can really be built behind a locked door with enough time and determination. So grab your coffee, settle in, and prepare yourself for a tale where good intentions pave the road to an unthinkable conclusion. Because sometimes, the most loving support can enable the most devastating outcomes. In October, something changed at the cottage. For the first time in months, Boyd seemed like he had a purpose again. He told his dad Robert over breakfast that he wanted to take a break from work. He had a personal project he wanted to focus on. Robert hadn't heard this much energy in Boyd's voice since the divorce. Boyd had been living at the cottage since his breakdown. He'd sleep until noon, barely eat, and just stare at the walls with empty eyes. But now he was talking about building something special, something that needed skill and careful work. When Robert offered to let him use the workshop downstairs with all the tools, Boyd said no thanks. He wanted to work upstairs in his bedroom. This project needed privacy and complete focus. Robert thought it was a bit weird, but if Boyd was finally getting better, he'd support whatever helped. By November, you could hear constant noise from upstairs. Sawing, measuring, hammering, the careful sounds of someone building something important. Robert had never seen his son so focused. Then the delivery truck came struggling up the narrow road to the cottage. It was loaded with materials that made Robert worried. Concrete blocks filled the truck bed. Heavy paving stones weighed it down. This was construction site stuff, not woodworking materials. Boyd said these were for structural support. The project needed a solid foundation. More deliveries kept coming. Metal brackets and chains, heavy-duty hardware meant for serious weight. When Robert asked what the concrete was for, Boyd stopped working for a moment. He said everything had to be perfectly balanced. It didn't really explain anything, but something in Boyd's voice told Robert not to ask more questions. Robert would lie awake listening to his son building at night. Around 3 a.m., the steady rhythm would start. Sawing, drilling, heavy things being moved around. Boyd had completely flipped his schedule. He worked all night and slept during the day. The bedroom door stayed locked now. Sometimes Robert heard mechanical sounds. Metal sliding against wood over and over. Testing, adjusting, like someone perfecting a complicated machine. In December, Boyd's work became an obsession. Electrical parts started arriving. Timers, switches, wiring that suggested automated systems. Robert would catch glimpses of technical drawings spread across the kitchen table. Complex mechanical diagrams that looked more like engineering blueprints than hobby plans. Boyd lost weight. His face got that hollow, intense look of someone consumed by one single purpose. He asked detailed questions about the cottage's electrical system. He studied manuals for industrial timing devices like he was cramming for an exam. The research was as intense as the building. Robert found mechanical engineering books scattered around the house, articles about historical craftsmanship, technical papers about timing mechanisms. When Robert asked how much longer it would take, Boyd smiled with quiet satisfaction. Soon, he said, very soon. After Christmas, an eerie calm settled over the cottage. Boyd's mood changed from intense focus to peaceful calm. The constant construction sounds decreased, just occasional fine-tuning now. For the first time in months, Boyd spent real time with his father. Their conversations felt almost nostalgic. Boyd asked if Robert remembered building the treehouse when he was a kid. He talked with unusual warmth about Robert's patience during that project. These conversations continued through the week. Shared memories, thank yous, moments of affection that Robert treasured but found somehow sad. Boyd mentioned he needed something for insomnia. Could Robert pick up some sleeping pills? The work had his mind too active at night. Robert was happy to help. He was pleased that Boyd was taking care of his health. On a cold January evening, Boyd hugged his father goodnight, something he hadn't done in years. He thanked Robert for everything, especially for giving him space to work on this project. At 3:30 in the morning on January 13th, a sound like thunder shook the cottage. Robert shot up in bed as the massive crash shook the whole house. Something heavy that made the windows rattle and the floors shake. He grabbed a flashlight and ran outside, expecting to see damage, but the cottage looked normal from the outside. Inside, the house went completely silent. Robert called Boyd's name. No answer. Maybe his son's project had finally collapsed. All that weight and machinery must have been unstable. Robert went back to bed, though he couldn't really sleep. In the morning, he knocked gently on Boyd's door before leaving for work. "Everything okay?" No response, but Robert figured his son was sleeping after months of night work. All day at work, Robert kept thinking about that sound, something so heavy, so terminal. By afternoon, he had an irrational worry creeping in. The cottage felt empty when Robert got home from work. He called Boyd's name. His voice echoed in silence. No response, not even shuffling sounds from upstairs. This silence felt different. Empty. Robert climbed the stairs slowly and pressed his ear against the bedroom door. Nothing. Robert's parental instincts kicked in. The crash in the night, the complete silence all day, Boyd's recent behavior that now seemed less like peace and more like finality. Maybe the contraption broke and trapped him, Robert thought desperately. Robert stood at the bottom of the stairs with a sledgehammer, knowing that whatever Boyd had been building was about to be revealed. The bedroom door broke apart on the third hit, and Robert's world shattered with it. The scene was impossible to understand at first. Destruction and blood, but organized destruction. The controlled chaos of a machine that had worked exactly as designed. In the center stood a massive wooden structure, reaching almost to the ceiling. Its timber frame was dark with stains. Boyd lay beneath it, motionless, surrounded by the elaborate device he'd spent months perfecting. The concrete blocks formed a solid base. The metal brackets and chains held components in perfect alignment. Every piece had served its purpose. Robert's legs gave out as the truth hit him. This wasn't an accident. This was the completion of Boyd's project, the successful operation of what he'd been building with such care. The police came quickly, followed by paramedics who confirmed what Robert already knew. Boyd had been dead since the crash that shook the cottage. As officers examined the wooden structure, one shook his head in amazement. He'd never seen anything like it. The inquest revealed the true nature of Boyd's months-long project. The coroner, Eric, examined the scene thoroughly. He documented the precision-cut timber, carefully balanced weights, and timing mechanisms set to activate at exactly 3:30 a.m. Boyd's computer revealed months of research into historical mechanisms and construction techniques. The sleeping pills found beside Boyd's body told their story. Not enough to cause death, but enough to make sure he was unconscious when his creation did its job. The timing mechanism had been set days in advance. Boyd's mental health history came out. Depression following his parents' divorce, years of emotional struggles that got worse after his own relationship ended. Robert testified about the construction period, describing months of supportive encouragement, while his son built what he thought was a healing hobby project. Eric noted the extraordinary complexity as he studied photographs. The detail, the planning, the historical research. This level of planning was unprecedented in his experience. No note was found despite all the elaborate preparation. The coroner paused, studying the photographs one last time. "In 30 years, he said slowly, he had never seen anything quite like this. He looked up at Robert with grave certainty. Boyd had built himself a guillotine. The word hung in the sterile air. Robert felt the last piece fall into place. All those months of construction, the careful research, and precise measurements. Boyd was building a device from history's darkest chapters. The concrete base, the towering wooden frame, the heavy blade that fell with thunderous finality. Eric explained that Boyd had modeled it on the French Revolutionary design. Every specification was historically accurate. The sounds Robert heard night after night, the testing, the adjusting, the careful calibration. Boyd was perfecting an instrument of death while his father listened supportively from below. The official verdict was that he took his own life, though Eric noted that the method was unprecedented in his 3 decades of experience. The cottage stands quiet now. The bedroom is empty of both its builder and his terrible creation. Boyd spent months building a device from history's darkest chapters, perfecting every detail while his father encouraged what he believed was healing. In trying to give his son space to heal, Robert had given him space to die. That concludes today's case. If you're drawn to the darkness like a moth to flame, like and subscribe for more chilling cases that will consume your thoughts right here at Grim Lane Files.